This is Theology Bits, a ministry of Central Lutheran Church, Eugene, Oregon. I'm Pastor Ben. This week we begin a new series on the concept of the biblical theological concept of peace. This is a topic that seems simple, but is incredibly complex, and the Bible has a lot to tell us and to teach us for what we understand peace to be. This first one is just the Hebrew word that encapsulates peace, shalom. Most of you know the word shalom. I want to just cite that most of the content that I'm beginning to present comes from the scholar Walter Brueggemann, who has done incredible work on this. His book, Peace, is especially helpful, quite dated at this point, but it's also encapsulated all over in his work. But first, to talk about this thing, peace, it might be helpful to just talk about what a biblical theological perspective is that might be different from some people's understanding. The first thing to point out is that a biblical theological understanding of peace is not absence, an absence of something. Like, for example, the absence of conflict, or the absence of conflicting parties, for example. If there's no one else around, then you must be at peace. Well, no, that's not true. Or if there's other people around, but you're not in conflict, well, therefore, you're at peace. The biblical theological suggestion is not that. It is not anything leading to isolation, which again is an absence. That means that you are simply not in relationship, or it's not about silence, meaning if you are in relationship, we just have things we just don't talk about. So instead, a biblical theological understanding of peace is an active thing. This is something that does something. And so that's why sometimes scholars will not call it peace, they'll simply call it shalom, which again is the Hebrew word for peace. It includes more than the English concept peace, but I think it's largely used simply to avoid some of the connotations that come with the English word peace. Not that all those connotations are bad, they're just different from the biblical theological perspective. Probably the closest thing that you can think of with shalom would kind of be something as complete harmony. The harmony thing probably makes some sense. You probably would think of that automatically with shalom, that things are working together, but that it's complete, that it's not just in one little microcosm things work together, but that everything is working together. We're going to get more into this. And the real way to understand shalom is to understand that this is on a cosmic scale. That is to say, on one hand, there's shalom. The opposite of shalom is not conflict. The opposite is chaos. This is important. This is the binary that especially is present in several passages of the Hebrew Bible. I would argue this is the real binary at all. Well, what is chaos? Chaos is the void. It's formless. And you are simply lost. It often is depicted as the sea. When you read, especially in the Old Testament, the sea, rarely are they talking about a body of water. What they're talking about is a concept. The concept where it's formless. There's nothing you can ground yourself with. There's no stability. You're just at a loss. It's neither really wrong nor right. It's just everywhere at once. The void is a great word for it. That is to say that there is, it's simply just nothingness, but not nothingness in the sense of empty and still. There's nothing empty or still about it. A void can't do anything. A void isn't still. Instead, it's churning like a sea, and you just end up being lost. Shalom, by contrast, instead of it being a void, it is a place. There's a space in it. And it is built on relationship. Relationship into all other things. So first, it has a place, which means if it's placed, there's stability to it. Here, it's formless. There, it's placed. It's grounded. Here, you're lost. You're isolated. I could have put that here too. Isolated and lost. Here, you are in relationship, and those relationships are in harmony, meaning that it really is beneficial for both parties. There's not a winner and a loser in this structure. This is a community concept. Shalom is a community concept, not an individual one. It's not a state of mind. Instead, this is something done together. And so we're in place, we're in relationship. There's where shalom can happen. And we should recognize that shalom is similar to, but not the same thing. I think actually what you want, I forget my shorthand. I think you're supposed to put a squiggly line there. To justice, in Hebrew, mishpat. But it's a little different, only in the sense of what is justice doing? Well, justice, especially in the prophets and in the New Testament, are addressing a lot of these binaries: the rich, the poor, the strong, the weak, the insider versus the outcast, the orphan, the widow. Well, justice very usually is speaking for these groups who are societally cast aside. And that's often what this concept of mishpat is. And the prophets are often speaking of this. Shalom is in relationship but different, because shalom is in fact beyond dualisms at all. That is to say, rather than lifting up the poor and strengthening the weak and gathering in the outcast, we are going to simply break the barriers so that there is no more rich and poor, strong and weak, insider and outcast. Something that justice aims toward, but shalom is something larger. It's why it's such a big concept. And it's a cosmic concept. It's not about a particular situation. It lives in a particular situation. That's the example. But the problem is a cosmic one, not a specific one. And so therefore, this is a global sensibility that when there is injustice, which is the same word for unrighteousness, when there is injustice, it reminds us of the global, of the cosmic. In the New Testament, this what would be described as, or what Paul talks about in Romans 5 and 6, the power of sin, this thing that has corrupted this whole world and that we're enslaved to. Yes, it involves the specific situation. In a situation where the poor are being cast down, in contrast to the rich, they are wrong and they should change their ethical behavior. But it also reminds us that we're in a broken system governed by the power of sin in a cosmic sense. That's what shalom is. And so what we see here is the concept of shalom is where you can get beyond this at all, where there is no more need for justice work because we've found ourselves finally into true harmony. But this leads to something else, because then this is a communal idea, obviously, if it has all of those components. But then, where's the individual? How does that fit? Well, the individual exists in community. There's no isolation here. But in the community, what can they be? They can be fruitful. They can have a productive life. Shalom and the concept of life are quite united to one another. That life that really is life can be possible and active. This is what this concept of shalom is. It's cosmic. It is in relationship. It is placed and grounded, and so therefore you are placed and grounded, and finally gives you a sense of who you are in the structure of everything. There is an identity component. That word is not a biblical word, but the concept fits. Remember what I said, it's complete, it's harmony. Well, I do fit in that complete harmony. Who am I in relationship to everything else? See, that's answered in Shalom. We're going to keep exploring this in videos to come of how this kind of works in real life and how this robust idea is expressed in lived out both in Hebrew Bible, New Testament, and also in modern theological thinking of our own lives we live in today. This has been Theology Bits. I'm Pastor Ben.